The large family hall was filled with smiles, music, and laughter. Long tables were covered with food, colorful flowers, and family photos. Everyone believed it was a celebration of love and success. Emily stood quietly near the window. She smiled when people looked at her, but inside she felt empty. For 26 years, she had tried to earn her parents' love. No matter how hard she worked, it was never enough. They always praised other people, but never her. Her father suddenly tapped his glass with a spoon. The room became silent. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," he said with a wide smile. Guests clapped politely. Then he laughed and looked at his wife. "You all think we raised Emily because we loved her." People nodded. His smile became colder. "The truth is, we were paid to raise her." The laughter stopped. Every face in the room froze. Emily felt her heart pound. She searched her father's face, hoping he was making a terrible joke. Her mother only smiled and folded her arms. "It was just business," she said. "Nothing more." A painful silence filled the hall. Some guests looked away. Others whispered to each other. Emily could not move. The words felt like sharp knives. Every lonely birthday, every cold dinner, every cruel comment suddenly came back to her. Then something unexpected happened. A woman standing quietly near the back of the room stepped forward. She looked no older than 50, but tears were already running down her face. She never took her eyes off Emily. With shaking hands, she held an old photograph against her chest. The parents' smiles disappeared. Fear filled their faces for the first time. The woman stopped only a few steps away from Emily and whispered softly, "I never stopped searching for you." The room became completely silent. Then she took one more step forward and said, "I am your birth mother." The room stayed silent. No one moved. Emily looked from the woman to her parents. Her hands were shaking. She wanted to speak, but no words came out. Her father finally broke the silence. "She is lying," he shouted. "Someone take her out." But the woman did not move. She slowly opened her old handbag and carefully removed a faded photo. It showed a young woman holding a newborn baby in a hospital bed. "I took this picture the day you were born," she said softly. "I carried it with me every single day." Emily stared at the photo. The baby's tiny blanket had the same blue star pattern that appeared in one picture from her childhood. The woman wiped away her tears. "My name is Sarah," she said. "I gave birth to you 26 years ago. I named you Emily before anyone else could." The guests whispered louder. Emily's mother suddenly stepped forward. "Stop filling her head with lies," she snapped. Sarah took a deep breath. "I never abandoned my daughter. I was told she died a few hours after birth." The room gasped. Emily felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. Sarah looked directly into her eyes. "For years, I visited your grave, but there was never a grave. Someone stole my future." Emily slowly stepped closer. "If that's true," she whispered, "how did you find me?" Sarah reached into her handbag once more. "I've been searching for 26 years." She carefully placed a thick brown envelope on the table. "I finally found the papers that explain everything." Emily's father rushed forward, his face filled with panic. "No!" he shouted. But before he could reach the envelope, Sarah opened it. Inside was a document that made every smile in the room disappear. The thick envelope lay on the table. Nobody dared to touch it. Sarah slowly pulled out the first document and handed it to Emily. "It belongs to you," she said. Emily looked down. The paper was old, with worn edges and faded ink. At the top were the words, "Private Guardianship Agreement." She frowned. "I don't understand." Sarah nodded sadly. "You will?" Emily's father suddenly reached for the papers, but one of the guests stepped between them. "No," the guest said firmly. "Everyone has heard enough lies. Let her read." Emily's hands trembled as she continued. The agreement showed a payment made 26 years earlier. A large amount of money had been transferred to the couple who raised her. Her heart raced. The date matched her birthday. Below the payment was another sentence. The child must never learn the identity of her biological mother. Emily looked up, unable to breathe. Her mother lowered her eyes for the first time that day. Sarah quietly spoke. "I never sold you. I never gave you away. Someone used my signature after I was told you had died. The room filled with shocked whispers. An elderly man slowly stood from the back of the hall. I know that signature, he said. I worked at the law office that prepared those papers. Every eye turned toward him. Emily's father looked as if all the color had left his face. The old man removed a small notebook from his coat pocket. I kept records of every unusual case, he said calmly. He opened the notebook to a marked page. There was one name written beside this file. He looked directly at Emily. It wasn't your parents. It was someone much more powerful. The entire room fell silent once again. Nobody spoke. The old man adjusted his glasses and looked at the faded notebook again. His hands were old, but his voice was steady. This case was different from every other case I ever saw, he said. Emily held her breath. Her father whispered, "Don't say another word." The old man ignored him. The person behind this agreement was not your parents. They were only the people who accepted the money. Gasps spread across the room. Emily slowly asked, "Then who planned all this?" The old man turned another page. There was a private foundation. On paper, it helped children, but behind closed doors, it arranged secret adoptions for wealthy families. Sarah closed her eyes. Tears rolled down her face. "I trusted them," she whispered. "They told me my baby had passed away after birth. I believed them." Emily's mother could no longer stay calm. "It wasn't our idea," she cried. "We were told everything was legal." Her husband quickly shouted, "Be quiet." But the damage was done. Several guests stepped away from the couple. Emily looked at the people she had called mom and dad her whole life. For the first time, she saw fear instead of pride. The old man reached into his briefcase. "I retired many years ago," he said. "But before I left, I made copies of every important file." He carefully placed a small flash drive on the table. "This contains every contract, every payment, every signature, and every name." Emily stared at the tiny flash drive. It looked so small, yet it carried the truth that had been hidden for 26 years. Just then, the front doors of the hall opened. 2 detectives walked inside. One of them looked directly at Emily and said, "We're here because someone finally gave us the evidence we've been missing." The entire hall became silent as the 2 detectives walked toward the table. One detective picked up the flash drive and looked at the old man. "Did you keep this safe all these years?" he asked. The old man nodded. "I promised myself that one day the truth would reach the right person." The detective carefully placed the flash drive into a small evidence bag. Then he looked at Emily's parents. "We've been investigating this case for several months," he said calmly. "We were waiting for one final piece of proof." Emily's father forced a nervous smile. "You can't believe old papers and stories." The detective shook his head. "We don't." He held up another folder. "We believe bank records." He opened a folder and placed several copies on the table. Every payment made 26 years ago was listed. Emily's parents' names appeared again and again. Sarah covered her mouth as tears rolled down her face. "I knew I wasn't crazy," she whispered. Emily slowly turned toward the couple who had raised her. "All these years," she said quietly. "Every time I asked why you never loved me." Neither of them answered. Her mother lowered her head. Her father looked at the floor. For the first time in their lives, they had nothing to say. The detective stepped closer. "You both told everyone you were paid to raise her." He paused. "You didn't know we already had a recording of those words." The guests gasped. Emily remembered seeing someone's phone pointed toward the stage. One simple video had captured everything. The detective reached for a pair of handcuffs. Just before he spoke another word, an elderly woman rushed into the hall. She looked at Sarah and cried, "I've carried this secret for 26 years, and I can't stay silent anymore." Everyone turned toward the elderly woman. She walked slowly, holding an old hospital badge in her hand. "My name is Helen," she said. "I was a nurse in the maternity ward 26 years ago." Sarah looked at her with tears in her eyes. "I remember you." Helen nodded sadly. "I wanted to tell the truth many times, but I was threatened. I was afraid I would lose everything." She looked at Emily. "I saw your mother holding you after you were born. She loved you from the first second. Sarah began to cry. Helen continued. The papers were changed without her knowledge. She was told her baby had died. That was a lie. The detectives quietly thanked Helen and took her statement. Emily looked at the couple who had raised her. Her father tried to speak. We made mistakes. Emily gently shook her head. No, she replied. A mistake happens once. You chose this every day for 26 years. Neither of them could look into her eyes. The detectives led them toward the exit as the guests stood in complete silence. Sarah slowly stepped closer to Emily. I know I can't get those years back, she said softly. But if you ever want to know me, my door will always be open. Emily looked at the old photo Sarah had carried for so many years. It was worn, folded, and faded, but it had never been thrown away. For the first time in her life, Emily felt something she had never truly known. She felt wanted. A few weeks later, she visited Sarah's small home. There were no expensive gifts, no grand speeches, only 2 cups of tea, old family albums, and quiet conversation. As the sun set outside, Emily smiled. She finally understood one simple truth. A real family is not built with money. A real family is built with love that never gives up,